Hey everyone, welcome back to the Pretty Creepy Podcast. I'm your host Maddie, and today we're going to be reading stories about skinwalkers. In Navajo culture, a skinwalker or a Yenal Delushi is a type of harmful witch who has the ability to turn into, possess, or disguise themselves as an animal. Skinwalkers are primarily associated with the southwestern part of the United States, such as Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, and according to some, even parts of Colorado. I live in Texas now, but I'm originally from Arizona, and I cannot believe how many nights I spent walking through the desert just being a little hood rat and completely oblivious to the fact that something could have been out there with me. I absolutely saw plenty of coyotes while out on those walks. None of them seemed weird to me though. So I don't think I've ever seen a skinwalker before, but I certainly hope I never do. Anyway, I found some pretty solid skinwalker stories on Reddit. So grab a drink, a snack, your favorite blankie and a stuffed animal, and let's get creeped out. I was about 11 years old and it was past midnight, 12:30 a.m. to be exact. My parents were asleep, but my cousin, who was 18 at the time, was still up. I had to take out the trash, so I brought my dog Barry with me. He was mostly black with a few white spots, always alert and always by my side. The trash can was only a 30-second walk from the front door. I tossed the bag in, then turned around and called for Barry. But there was nothing. No footsteps, no tags jingling, just silence. I turned on my flashlight and looked around. He wasn't there. Confused, I started walking back toward the house. That's when I heard it. Heavy, fast, pounding footsteps coming up behind me. I whipped around and saw something I'll never forget. Charging at me was something completely black, darker than the night around it, like it absorbed light itself. A massive black figure running straight at me. It wasn't a dog or a pig or a horse, but somehow it looked like all three. Its body was wrong, just wrong. Its movement too fast, too heavy. It made no sound except for the thunder of its steps. No matter how fast I ran, it felt like it was 2 steps behind me. This feeling of dread and fear instantly shot through me as I sprinted to the door. Heart racing, I flung it open and slammed it shut behind me. I sat there on the floor, gasping, trying to process what just happened. Then it hit me. Oh shoot, I left Barry outside. I start crying as I think of what that thing could have done to my innocent dog. I was scared to death, but I couldn't leave him out there. So I stood up, ready to go back out and find him, heart racing, until Barry came walking toward me from his kennel inside the house. Inside the house. Calm and normal. He had never left the house. He was inside the whole time. Whatever I called to out there, it wasn't my dog. We live in Utah, and my Uncle Mark went on a mission at 19. They sent him to an Indian reservation in Arizona. They paired him up with a companion named Carl. When they first got there, there was a huge rift with the locals on the reservation with them being there. They didn't want my uncle and Carl staying on the reservation grounds. Eventually, they came to a compromise that they would stay on the outskirts in a trailer. This reservation wasn't very big and was located next to a heavily wooded area. The first night, they were trying to sleep when all of a sudden, their trailer started to shake violently back and forth. Startled and not sure what was happening, they climbed under their table for cover. Mark could distinctively hear someone pushing it from both sides of the trailer, like a group of people. After about 5 minutes, it stopped. That next day, they made rounds on the reservation and were talking to the locals. Carl made a comment to one of the families that their trailer was shaking that night before. The family got very quiet and then told them that they had to leave. They thought it was strange but didn't think much of it. The next night, it happened again. They awoke to their trailer shaking back and forth. Again, they climbed under the table until it stopped. This went on for 2 more nights. Anytime they tried to talk to anyone about it, they got quiet and told them to leave. Mark started thinking that, due to the tension of their arrival, the locals were doing this to scare them off the reservation. They then go into a convenience store, and they were talking together about how frustrated they were with the situation. The clerk overheard and said, "They can't talk about it, it's forbidden." Confused, they ask him, "Can't talk about what?" The guy continues to tell them about the Skinwalkers. He says they are evil demons that were once Native American witches. If they talk about it, the Skinwalkers will come for their souls. They just walked out of there baffled. They thought it was another scare tactic. So that night, when the shaking started again, my uncle decided to be brave and confront them. He went to the trailer door, flew it open, and yelled, "Hey!" When he did that, he saw these 3 animals run off. 2 were a wolf and 1 was a bear. But they looked strange, almost with human features. As he watched them run towards the trees, all 3 stood up on 2 legs and walked slowly towards the trees, making a human cackling laugh. It scared him so bad that they called their mission president the next morning and asked to be moved. They were relocated that day. For a year, nothing happened. One day, they announced that Carl was being relocated to another city and Mark was getting a new companion, Jimmy. They had to drive for about an hour to pick up Jimmy from the airport. The road they traveled went through the boundaries of the reservation. They arrived at about 8 p.m. and met Jimmy, and they go to leave. The mission president tells Jimmy, "We are driving through a dangerous area at night, so we can't make any stops. If you need to use the restroom, you need to go now." Jimmy says, "I'm fine." The mission president gets serious enough to freak out Mark. "I am not kidding. Go do your business." Jimmy was insistent that he was fine, so they hit the road. As they were about 30 minutes into the drive, they were going through the area of the reservation boundaries. Jimmy starts complaining that he needed to go pee very badly. The mission president says, "We can't stop here. You'll have to hold it." Jimmy keeps going on, "I really can't hold it." So the mission president stops the car and says, "Okay, but you will do your business next to the door, and if I say get into the car, you better get into the car fast." With a look of confusion, Jimmy says, "All right," opens the door and starts to do his business. In about 5 seconds, the mission president says nothing and just yanks Jimmy into the car and floors it. Jimmy and Mark start freaking out. What is going on? The mission president says nothing and just increases his speed. All of a sudden, Mark sees something next to the car to his right. A giant wolf-looking man was running on 2 feet next to the car. Mark looked at the speedometer. They were going over 60 miles an hour and still increasing. The wolf creature kept right next to the car for 10 minutes until it finally took off into the trees. Shaking, Jimmy gets out of the car when they arrive and says, "What did I just see?" The mission president says, "Next time I tell you to take care of your business, you take care of your business." Last year, me and my boyfriend at the time went to a public park around sunset. The park was relatively big and in a wooded area. We were the only car in the parking lot and we didn't see anyone else around. There was a frisbee golf trail and we set off walking on it. We heard some weird noises but wrote it off as animals coming out as the sun was setting. That's until I heard what I thought was a kitten meowing in a nearby bush. I was so excited and was desperately looking for this kitten. I love animals and would not hesitate to bring a stray home, despite my parents' dismay. After a few minutes of searching and the meowing continuing, it turned into what I can only describe as a puppy crying in pain. That really tugged at my heartstrings and I searched even harder. I mean, my God, it was a dog in pain. I had to find it. But then my boyfriend started to get a weird feeling and told me to stop. A second after he said that, the noises shifted into a baby crying. Chills went over my body. The noises were changing in order to lure me. We started to walk away, not turning our backs away from the noises, walking faster and faster. The noises turned into ungodly growls and gurgles, shifting back and forth from that and what sounded like a human mocking police sirens. Thankfully, we made it back through the woods and to the car safe. I'll never forget that feeling, the overwhelming panic of realizing I'm being hunted. So this happened in my hometown in Santa Fe, New Mexico. My uncle, his girlfriend, and I were on our way back from a casino an hour south of Santa Fe. We took this back road on the outskirts of town. We always took this route as it was the easiest way across town and home. My uncle is driving, his girlfriend is dead asleep in the back seat, and I'm riding shotgun. We turn on this familiar road and drive a ways down it. As we go, there are houses on our left and the desert on our right. I catch a glimpse of what looks like a humanoid hunched over with its arms extended to the ground, almost as if it were on all fours, kind of breeze across the road. It quickly ran into the desert, but from that few seconds I could clearly see what appeared to be a mask made of fur on its face and 2 different sized antlers coming off the top. But what really struck me and still gives me the creeps till this day are the eyes. I peered right into them, and to this day I can't explain the horror I looked into. This all happened in a matter of seconds. I looked at my uncle and tried exclaiming what I had just seen. He says I looked pale and my eyes were full of fear. I finally get it out and tell him, I think I just saw a skinwalker. As I'm saying those words, the biggest owl either of us have ever seen with snow white feathers flies next to my window and hoots at us, then flies away. I worked at a ski resort in Colorado, and after a really long season, friends of mine were all meeting up in Arizona and then going to see the Grand Canyon. I had to work my job waiting at a high-end restaurant, and I was hitting the road as soon as I was done with my shift. I somehow thought it would be fine driving alone, leaving at around 10 or 11 at night and driving through for about 11 hours and meeting up the next day. I'm driving along through New Mexico, taking Navajo reservation roads that were really dark, but I had cranked up my music and was jamming out, not worried about anything. I was about 50 miles or so in the reservation land when I see a 20-something-year-old native man walking down the side of the road facing me on the left side. He was dressed in full buckskin with feathers in his hair, wearing moccasins. I thought he had come from a ceremony or something, so I didn't think it was too odd. He was traveling in the opposite direction, so I didn't feel bad for not giving him a ride or anything. I just noticed he walked a little bent at the shoulders and was fairly tall and trim. Fast forward to 3 a.m. and I don't know, maybe an hour and a half later, still on Navajo roads, and I see a person walking towards my car again on the same side of the road. I really hadn't seen anything or anyone else except for stars the whole time I'm driving on the reservation. I slow down because it's late and I don't want to hit anybody. I look at the person and it is the exact same 20-something-year-old native male, full buckskin, moccasins, feathers, hunched shoulders. This time he looks at me as I pass him with a menacing snarl on his face that freaked me the fuck out. Words can't describe the look he gave me. I was so freaked out seeing him again, it being that late, me being all alone, I didn't know what to do. I turned my music off, cracked my windows enough to get some fresh air, and drove till I was off the reservation roads and on a bigger highway. I wasn't right in my head until the sun came up, and even longer than that. I don't know what he was or what it meant that I saw him that night. I just know it feels wrong to tell people and still freaks me out like it happened yesterday instead of 34 years ago. I've always been a skeptic. Ghosts, aliens, monsters, they were all just stories to me. But after what I experienced in the Southwest, my perspective on the unknown has been forever altered. I was on a road trip with my best friend Jake. We had decided to take a detour through the Navajo reservation in Arizona, mainly because of the scenic beauty and the rich history of the area. We had heard tales of skinwalkers, but we laughed them off. They were just myths, right? Our first day on the reservation was uneventful. We visited a few local spots, interacted with some of the locals, and set up camp near a canyon. As night fell, we sat around our campfire, sharing stories and enjoying the serenity of the desert. Around midnight, Jake decided to turn in. I stayed up, mesmerized by the stars. The Milky Way stretched across the entire sky, and I felt a profound sense of peace. That is, until I heard it. A low, guttural growl echoed through the canyon. I froze, thinking it might be a coyote or a mountain lion, but then I heard a voice. It was distorted, as if someone were speaking through a broken radio, but it was unmistakably Jake's voice. "Come here," it beckoned. Confused, I turned to our tent. Jake was sound asleep. The voice called out again, this time from the opposite direction. I grabbed a flashlight and pointed it towards the source. What I saw will haunt me forever. Standing on a ridge was a figure. It looked like a man, but its limbs were elongated and its eyes glowed a sickly yellow. It wore tattered clothing, and its skin was a mottled gray. But the most disturbing part was its face. It was Jake's face. I stumbled back, my heart racing. The creature mimicked Jake's voice again. "Come here." It took a step towards me, its movement jerky and unnatural. I bolted to the tent, shaking Jake awake. "We need to go now," I hissed. He looked at me confused, but the urgency in my voice spurred him into action. We packed up as quickly as we could, the creature's voice echoing around us, mimicking our voices, our laughter, and conversations from earlier. As we sped away in our car, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The creature stood in the middle of the road, watching us, its yellow eyes glowing in the darkness. We didn't stop driving until we reached the nearest town. We checked into a motel, and I spent the night researching skinwalkers. The legends say they were witches who could take the form of animals or people, using their voices to lure victims. I don't know what we encountered that night, but I do know one thing. The stories are real. The Southwest is beautiful, but it holds secrets that are beyond comprehension. And I'll never set foot in the Navajo reservation ever again. To all of you reading this, please be careful when you venture into unknown territories. Some legends are rooted in truth, and some nightmares are very, very real. In college, we lived in a semi-secluded little mountain town in New Mexico. We would always entertain and have a bonfire lit in our backyard as we had the space. One night, we had a good 30-plus people in our little place. Everyone was having fun, some a little too much fun. The night carried on, and as the party was dying out, a buddy of mine who happens to be of Native descent had a little too much to drink, and as a sober enough friend, he became my responsibility. I take him out back to cool off, light him up a cigarette, and sit there and listen to his ramblings. Maybe 20 minutes go by, people come out to smoke, say their goodbyes, and eventually wander back inside. All the while I'm letting him rant. We end up alone, another 10 minutes of drunken ramblings and several "I love you bro" moments later. I turn to dig in my pockets and light another cigarette, when he stops himself mid-sentence and shushes me. We sat in silence and listened. All you could hear was the crackle of the fire. No wind, not even a stereotypical tree branch breaking in the distance. It was deafening. When suddenly I hear what sounds like water, rushing water, like as if you had been standing next to a downhill stream. It was coming from the corner of the yard with the gap in our broken fence, the darkest spot in the yard. It was getting louder. It was getting closer. I shit you not, the hairs on the back of my neck I didn't even know I had felt like they were trying to jump out of my skin at this point. My buddy sobered up immediately, doesn't take his eyes off that dark spot, stood up, started walking towards it, and began shouting in his native tongue. Literally seconds after he finished whatever prayer he later revealed he had been saying, the sound of the rushing water stopped. Scared the fuck out of me. Still does. I was spending a month with my cousins at my grandma's house. It was August, and my cousins' ages ranged from 10 to 15, and I was the oldest, being 15. I was staying with a 10, 13, and 14-year-old. We stayed up telling scary stories often, but one night a few weeks in, we decided to make a campfire out back. My grandma's house is in a rural suburb. The neighbors aren't too far when you're driving down the road to her house, but in the backyard, it's thick forest with man-made paths through it. Each house is on a hill, so only part of the basement was actually underground. That isn't important until later, though. So, we're towards the east side of her yard in a smallish patch of open land. You couldn't see the neighboring yards from there, and there was probably 3/4 of a mile to each side of that belonged to my grandma. It was maybe 11 at night, and we were playing truth or dare after telling scary stories, and my 14-year-old cousin dared me and the 13-year-old to go walk through the paths for 10 minutes or so. I said yes right away, as I wasn't scared easily and rather level-headed, but my younger cousin was a bit more hesitant. We didn't bring a flashlight because it wasn't pitch dark yet, and we could see just enough to not die. We were walking through the pass for about 5 minutes and could barely see the fire through the trees when we decided to turn. In the middle of the path was a large, dog-like creature, hunched over with its front hands an inch from the ground. What I remember most was how its eyes were so fucking bright white, and it was humanoid dog-shaped with a human-like head but a dog-like body, but human hands and feet. It looked right at us, and I know I was paralyzed with fear as it dashed away the opposite way from us, towards a creek that ran through the yard. Eventually, my cousin and I screamed bloody murder, and the other cousins and my grandma ran to us. I don't remember much here because I was really disoriented and I couldn't think properly. But I later on woke up in bed, so I assumed that I was brought up to the house. All the kids slept in the basement, in a big room with sliding glass doors to the outside, as the room was on the side that wasn't underground. My bed was pressed against a big glass window, and I could see my cousins playing outside down below. The house is in Michigan, so it gets slightly chilly even in the end of August, and there was a slight breeze, so I put a jacket on and ran to join them outside, skipping breakfast, not wanting to miss out on anything fun. When I got down, I could tell they weren't playing, but rather running to get my grandma. Her dogs, both of them, were dead, ripped apart. That night we went to bed early. I woke up at maybe 2 in the morning because I felt something hit my head. My cousins were all sitting on the double bed opposite of me on the other side of the room. There was one bunk bed and 2 double beds. The double beds for me and my 14-year-old cousin. They were being quiet and staring at me. The 13-year-old nodded his head toward the window. I froze. They all looked afraid. I turned my head slightly to the side, and I saw a really messed up looking face pressed to the window with gaping eyes looking down at me. I screamed so fucking loud, and it bolted. My grandma called the police after I told her what happened, and they found nothing. I went home after that, and I have never been there during the night again. I decided to join my bestie Karen for a 3-day stay at her grandmother's place on the res. Her grandmother lives near a place called Tuba City, Arizona, in the middle of nowhere but surrounded by rural homes. We go to college together, and I was kind of interested to know about the Navajo tradition. The first day we stayed, it was pretty chill, nothing out of the ordinary. But then her grandma said that a stray dog came out of nowhere and wouldn't leave. To me, it did act kind of strange and was ugly looking. Black, shaggy coat, looked like a mix between a German Shepherd and a lab. That night, we were watching a movie in the living room with the curtains wide open. Grandma was in the kitchen cooking dinner, and we were watching a movie. Next to the window is a medium-sized bookshelf and where DVDs are kept. Karen went to put back a DVD we had just watched, but she freaked out because that stray black dog was staring at us through the window, standing on top of the wood box outside. Not something normal dogs do from my point of view or hers. The other dogs seemed to stay away from it. Karen opened the door and yelled at it to get off the box. It ran off behind the shed. We went to Tuba City to get some groceries, came back to the house. The dog was nowhere to be seen, nothing unusual. Grandma went to visit some people, so it was just Karen and I. About 5 o'clock, we heard someone trying to open the door. Both of us looked out since there had been no car heard and no dogs barking. Looking out the living room window to the door, and there was the dog trying to open the door with its paws. 2 paws wrapped around the brass doorknob, standing on its hind legs. I thought that was weird, but wasn't really freaked out, although Karen was. She opened the door and chased it off. Grandma came back later and Karen told her about it. Grandma did not like what she heard. Got ready to go to sleep. We slept in the spare bedroom since it had 2 beds. There was one window in the room and we had the curtains open just a little. We turned off the light, but there was a sound coming from on top of the roof. Pitter-patter footsteps and scratching sounds and panting. It then sounded like it jumped off onto the large plastic water barrel they had. At first, we heard what sounded like barking, but as it grew louder, the other dogs seemed to be barking at something also. But all of a sudden, something was running around the house barking, and it was no dog. Nope, it wasn't. This barking sounded human, a deep male voice barking like it knew that we knew it wasn't a dog. Karen decided to open up the curtains to look out. There was the stray dog on its hind legs looking into our bedroom window, but this time it stunk, and what I thought were 2 black holes in the neck were another pair of eyes that twinkled, and the paws were deformed looking hands with overgrown, somewhat thick and sharp fingernails. Again, both screaming and shutting the curtains closed. Grandma came running through the door, and she saw it. First thing she did was grab ashes from the fireplace, load 3 shells into the shotgun from under her bed, bless herself in Navajo, and went outside to shoot it. Yelling in Navajo about the thing wasn't welcome there, and to get the hell out of there, for it to go linger somewhere else. Them both being traditional, the next day they called a medicine man to come over and put cedar in. He prayed over everyone with cedar smoke and an eagle feather, blessed the place. He made us eat bitter herbs called eagle gall or something like that and gave me an arrowhead. Apparently I needed to carry one for protection and a little pouch called corn pollen. Seems to work pretty well. The medicine man said that the dog was a skinwalker, which in Navajo is a long word, but I call them Yoshis. The body of a stray dog, which was killed by the skinwalker, made an illusion so we wouldn't know it wasn't a real dog. He also said that Yoshis tend to harm people by using some sort of human bone straw to spit at someone. Think like spitballs, only deadlier, and get human bones into them. Doctors can't detect it, but the medicine man that day pulled a piece of human skull out of Grandma's right shoulder. Pretty big, about 2 inches long and 1 centimeter thick. It was real because we watched him pull it out of her. That was intense.